Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Talk of the Town podcast. My name's Julie.
My name's JT. We had on my buddy James. We met at a real estate event a while ago, and he's a really cool guy. He has his own real estate rental properties. He also owns Stellar Housing Solutions with a few of his partners, which is a midterm rental property management company.
We talked a lot about mindset and how he's able to overcome the problems that come along with owning and managing rental properties and real estate investing. Be sure to leave us a review on Spotify. It really helps us out a lot. And subscribe and like on our YouTube channel. We hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode and stay tuned for upcoming episodes.
Yeah, people that will be
watching.
Yeah.
I think it's so cool. There's so many remote jobs now that I'm like, why don't more people do this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I feel like if you're young and like single, even if you're not single, like you could just like do it. And I feel like it would be fun. I don't know.
You know, it's scary for a lot of people. It's like, this is like entrepreneurship or even small business. It's like not unless you grew up in it, it's not like normal.
Yeah.
And so like the fear of like the unknown, you know, it's like crippling for everybody. So
yeah,
some of us just happen to be like, you know what, let me just give it a shot. Like, what do I have to lose?
Yeah.
But not everyone like has that opportunity either. But
did you like go to college? Like, what was your route? Like, did you take a traditional route and then like find
100%.
entrepreneurship?
Yeah. Like, so I work at a hospital. Like, you used to work in a hospital too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm an oncology pharmacist.
Nice.
And like, I'm still actually a full-time employee, and I work per diem at another hospital.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm doing like this and investing in real estate and stuff. So
wow,
like,
good for you.
I went from completely on one side of the spectrum where I wanted nothing to do with any type of stress. I didn't want a business. I didn't even want to be a landlord, nothing, because, you know, my parents were kind of that. And I saw all the stress and I was like, I don't freaking want that for my life. And then like, yeah, you know, things changed, some light bulb moments and stuff. And now I'm like, what the heck? Like, oh, I could have been here by now had I started earlier.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, everything happens like timing, like for a reason. I would
Yeah.
not have done well like if it was earlier. So
Yeah. Do you feel like your goal is to like eventually move away from like being a pharmacist, or do you kind of
Yeah.
like that there's like a balance?
no, I'd say, so I actually really like what I do, and like all my coworkers are basically like my best friends. You know, they all also start like investing in real estate, and like they're into midterm rentals and all that stuff. So it's like
Nice.
a unicorn situation where I like all my coworkers and like we all talk about the same things. And so I don't want to get away from that, but at some point I need to go like part-time so I could spend more time on like the business.
Definitely.
So
Yeah.
we'll see.
That's what I did. I was full-time. I worked in radiation oncology at Robert Wood. So I was doing treating the patients getting radiation.
Yeah.
And then I was full-time, and then I went part-time, and I was doing starting my jewelry business on the side. And then like slowly I was able to kind of transition. But like there's never going to be a moment where you're like, okay, I'm ready to leave my, you know, my full-time job.
Yeah.
It's like, you just have to do it. Like you have to go for it. Cause I feel like if I never like, you know, worked towards it, I don't think I ever would have left.
Time first and
Yeah.
had something going on. So
Yeah.
like, and if you really, really needed to in your worst case scenario, it's like, all right, let me go find
a-
like a part-time
Yeah.
job or work per diem.
That's what I
or
always
stuff like
think.
that.
I'm like, there's always going to be an opportunity to go back if I need to.
Yeah.
They're always going to be short staffed.
yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
and need someone. So yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. That's what I think is nice about like just going that route, is like you have something to fall back on. But I know some people don't operate like that. Like they, from a young age, they just like jump right into it and they take all these risks. But yeah, I don't know which way would be like better or worse.
Are you still doing the jewelry business?
Yeah.
Okay, nice. So you
Yeah.
have like people that are running it for you.
I only have one girl working it or helping me work, and then I'm still like pretty much a part of it. But I would like to like hire more people and kind of be less involved.
Yeah. I mean, I guess
it
if you're
was-
going to go on that long trip, you have to
Yeah.
have that like all set up, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna
There's
have to
nothing
figure
like a
that out.
deadline. So you're going to get it done.
Yeah.
It's on our checklist, because also like for
Yeah.
Lime Media, we need to have someone filming. So like if we have
Oh,
clients in
yeah.
New Jersey, someone has to go out and film each month
Mm.
at the
Yeah.
very least. So it's like, if, you know, like we need to like figure that out before we can
Mm-hmm.
take a trip anywhere for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All doable.
definitely. Yeah.
So where did you like first hear about like real estate investing? Like was there like a video that you saw or like someone that you talked to, and like how did you learn about it?
Well, during the pandemic, when
Okay.
everything like shut down, like I had some coworkers that were into real estate, but they like didn't actually jump into it. So they were in like the beginning stages of like learning and educating. And so they told me about bigger pockets and whatnot. And so, when I'm at work and we're talking, like I'm overhearing what they're talking about. At the time I wasn't interested, but for whatever reason, they just kept talking about something called bigger pockets. And then I looked it up on, Spotify, started listening to the podcast, and there's several different versions of the Bigger Pockets podcast. And what's known as like the OG podcast, they just have people with like, I have 200 units or I own all these things. And I kind of felt like I can't really relate to that. But then they also have another podcast called like The Real Estate Rookie or something like that. And that's when, it was, stories of people saying, hey, I only have 2 properties, or I have 3 or 4 or 5, or I still work a full-time job and I'm investing in real estate. And some of them, it's not like they're even, upper management or that type of W-2. Sometimes it's like, hey, and I just work as a server, but I figured it out. And then seeing all of those stories and hearing all those stories, it made me realize, wait, like if they can do it, like why can't I? Right. And so during the pandemic, I had a lot of downtime and I was studying for other license exams and stuff because I thought I wanted to move out to California. So I wanted to get my license in California. Wow. And I also wanted to get board certified as an oncology pharmacist. So I was studying for that. And during my studying time, my reward to finishing a chapter was I can listen to like a podcast episode or I can finish a chapter in a book. And so my coworkers like, dude, you're crazy.
That's
studying.
A weird reward.
Yeah. And they're like, you're studying for an exam and your reward is to study real estate? And I was like, no. These are 2 very different things. Like all these things that I'm learning about real estate, it's just blowing my mind. And it's like this crazy adventurous story that like you never knew existed that is actually real and something that you can do. Right. And so once I started learning different strategies and all the things that you can do in real estate, that's when, you go down like this crazy rabbit hole. And JT, like, actually, we have to talk about like our first real estate meetup story. But, next thing you know, like I'm reading all the books, all the YouTube content, the Facebook groups. I took like a boot camp and all this stuff. And then it was just a matter of like just taking action.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's I feel like everyone has like a unique path to entrepreneurship, but that's kind of that's cool that you had like a whole group of coworkers talking about it. Do you have any coworkers that are investing today? Or I know you've brought a bunch of them to the networking groups. I've probably met about 5 of them already. I feel like all the time you bring a new one through.
Yeah, so I think as far as my coworkers, one of my coworkers, shortly after I purchased my first property, he ended up buying a duplex, and then he ended up buying like 1 or 2 more properties like in Florida. And then I have other coworkers who are house hacking. So they bought a duplex and they're living inside of there. And I have a bunch of other coworkers who are interested in buying their first rental property, their first investment and all that stuff. So we're all on our way at some point in the process. But it's really cool because I get to be intimately involved in the entire process, and I absolutely will.
Yeah.
I'll send them listings or they'll send listings to me. We'll dissect everything. We'll learn how to analyze everything together. And especially if it's in like my area and like my market, I already have all this like market knowledge and the rents and the good areas and the bad and what you should look out for and stuff. Yeah. And so we would even go to showings together. I'll go to like their home inspections, once they're under contract. And then some of our contractors will use the same contractors and vendors and all that stuff. And so for me, so I have 2 rental properties. I have a triplex that I purchased February of 2022, and then a duplex that I purchased October of 2023. Okay. And so even though I only have 2 properties, by the time I got to my second property, in my head, I was already on property number 5, even though it was actually only number 2, because I was so deeply involved in everyone else's deals and their process that all of a sudden, I felt like I had, gone through all the cycles. And so then being that deeply involved in other people's deals, it just changed everything for me, because instead of me learning, all these lessons by myself, I'm learning other people's mistakes and what they have gone through, looking at how their homes are set up and all the issues that they have to deal with. And for me, I get to learn the easy way. And so it was a huge boost in confidence in that, in the very beginning, you're so scared about everything. And I hit my very first deal. I hit this crazy emotional peak of just turmoil and stress and being overwhelmed. And that lasted for months, like many, many months. And I never really came down from it until much later once I started collecting rent. But for my duplex, like, I don't think I was ever stressed during the entire process. And if anything, I was like, oh, okay, this happened. I was like, okay, like, all right, it's whatever. I don't really care. Not that I didn't care, but the level of, the emotions that you kind of go through, it's just like a completely different story. And so when you go through all these like cycles, it just changes your entire experience. And then it just makes your confidence grow like tremendously.
Can you tell us about your experience with your first property? Because I remember going over to help you one night, and the secondhand stress that I felt after walking through that place was crazy. I couldn't believe what you were doing in there. I was like, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, there's so much stuff to do. And like, there were so many different projects going on all at once. Can you tell us like a little bit about that experience and kind of what that taught you?
Yeah, so I bought a triplex, which is a 3-family house, and it was all completely vacant, meaning that there were no tenants. All 3 units needed work. The basement needed work. Everything just needed work. And so I was basically doing like these gut renovations of all the units all at the same time, completely disorganized. And so no matter where you went, or whether you're on the first, second, or third floor, just like a bomb had gone off.
Where were you living during this? Were you weren't living in any of the units, obviously, because they were all needed to be like renovated.
Yeah, exactly. So I was still living with my parents. And so after work, I would drive, in traffic about 40 to 45 minutes to the house just to do all this DIY renovations.
So you were doing it all yourself, or did you hire?
A lot of it was, myself, and I had people like JT, coming over to help me, swing the hammer and all that stuff, put a sheetrock. We'll talk about that.
Oh my gosh.
And I also had, one of my partners now, Frank, he is super duper handy, has a lot of skills and tools. So, he was helping me out every single night. And then throughout the way, I was also hiring contractors too, to do a lot of like the big things, because there's only so much that I could do. And in the beginning, I would tell people, oh yeah, I'm going to DIY the entire triplex by myself. And I think maybe it might take 4 months. I don't think it's going to take longer than 4 months. And mind you, I had 0 skills. I didn't even have the tools. Like when I told my parents that I was going to buy this triplex and DIY renovate it, my dad was like, no, you're not. I said, no, I'm telling you that I'm going to, right? I'm going to figure it out. He said, no, you're not. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm telling you I'm going to do it. And he was like, no, you're not going to do it because you don't have the skills. You don't have the tools. You don't have the knowledge. And I was like, okay, well, there's no confidence in me there, but I also get it,
Yeah.
And in the end, we got through all of it. And then in the end, my dad was like, hey, I need you to finish so that maybe we can buy something together, So it went from 0 confidence to like 100% confidence. It's been kind of wild.
That is really cool.
But kind of going back to, JT, when you're helping me out, like with that house. So I believe it was a second floor in one of the bedrooms, and we had to, like, there were really, really bad cracks in the wall. And so essentially everything had to come down. So it was like plaster walls that just crack and crumble and only get worse over time. So JT spent multiple nights way past 12, like midnight, helping us, put sheetrock up. I've never done sheetrock before, and I think at the time you didn't either, but we just figured it out, and we got it done. A month later, all of it came down. And so that second floor, we had it listed for rent and we were doing showings, and we were 2 weeks into doing showings and we realized, oh, the kitchen sink doesn't drain. Like, it's really, really bad. And so I had called one of my plumbers that I used to do, make some other repairs. And he said, back when you had all the kitchen walls open, I didn't want to say anything, but those cast iron pipes that you have, like, they needed to go then. Like, you didn't change them out? And I said, no, because no one told me. Yeah. He was like, oh, I didn't want to come off as if like I wanted to like get some extra business off of you. So I didn't say anything. And I was like, well, can you snake it or anything? He's like, no, you have so many 90-degree bends and stuff. You're just going to break the snake if I try to do it, Oh, man. And so we decided on the opposite side of the kitchen plumbing is where the bedroom was that we put up all the sheetrock. So all that had to come down on the second floor and the first floor and replace all the kitchen plumbing.
That is really insane.
Oh my gosh.
So that was crazy because we had to cancel showings. I'm like, this is done. This apartment was done. But now all these walls just came, tumbling down. But fortunately, the person that I was using, he was able to get someone to come back and just sheetrock it up real quick. And by then I had built, some pretty good skills with spackling and stuff. So I was able to finish it out myself and paint and take care of it. And then I think it was just 3 or 4 days where we just had to hit the pause button, but we were back, rolling again. So it was insane. And like, as stressful as that was, it just showed me that no matter what problem you have, there are always going to be ways that you can fix it. And so you can spend time worrying and crying about it and complaining about it to someone else and wasting time, or you could choose to be resourceful and tap into every single person that that could be of help. Let me go online, let me check all of these resources online, whether it's YouTube or Google, Facebook groups and all that stuff. And your ability to be tenaciously resourceful is what's going to change the game for you, because in the beginning, you don't really know too many people. And so maybe just talk to 1 or 2 people. Maybe they give you some like bad advice or not like the best advice where it's actionable steps that you can take. So you're kind of left, dealing with everything your own when you don't even like know anything, right? Like how to solve the problem. But as soon as you, over time, you learn, all right, instead of 2 or 3 people in my phone book, now I have 5 or 10 because I've built relationships along the way, or I've found that these websites are good to learn about this particular topic, or these resources are good for that topic. And so as you build your skills to become more resourceful and you're like tenacious at it, all of a sudden you're able to solve problems way faster, and you start having these cycles where you see that you had an issue where you didn't know how to solve and it was completely new. And if anything, you just hit this peak of emotional stress. But when you know that, oh, if I turn on my switch of being tenaciously resourceful, I can go from peak emotional stress to hitting emotional equilibrium like very quickly. And the way that you would do that is by taking any actionable steps and, trying to create 2 or 3 solutions for the one problem that you have. And as soon as you figure out all these options to solve that problem, you feel so much better. Because then at that point, it's like, all right, I know it can clearly be solved. How do I want to go about it?
Yeah.
Choose it, take care of it. It's not a problem anymore.
Yeah. I think like in my head, when I think about like buying my first property, I feel like the hardest part would be getting it, but it seems like you got it, but then you face like all these other challenges after. And it's like if you decide that you want to be an entrepreneur or take on investing, like you have to be so extremely resilient, because if one like little thing gets you down, you're never going to get through and like find any success in what you're doing.
Exactly. That rookie podcast that, I mentioned previously, there's a host who, I don't know if he still does it, but he always had this mindset segment where he was saying the journey is going to be hard. You're going to you are now a problem solver. This is your new identity. You're going to have crisis after crisis. you're going to have all these issues that you have to tackle. And it's the way that you think about it and how you react to those scenarios that's going to determine if you're going to be successful and make it out to the end. And it's also going to determine if you're going to decide to just throw in the towel and just call it quits. Because a lot of people will buy like their first investment property, and then that's when it stops because they are not resourceful and they don't figure out how to solve these problems. So then it compounds and just gets worse. And even on like the mental side, if you're not prepared for all of that, you're just not going to like move forward.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Yeah. I mean, that's really amazing. Like, I know like all the challenges you went through, and like we don't have to go through this, but like you had issues with the plumbing stack and like all these things that like kind of like you're saying, these unexpected problems. I feel like it happens in real estate all the time. Like there's other scenarios and other places where you have like you think you're done with something and you're not. But I feel like in real estate it happens all the time. There's always things that are like popping up that you weren't expecting or things like that. So
Even to that too, if you are expecting problems to happen, when it happens, you'll be able to recognize, oh, this is that time period that they were talking about. Let me put on the right hat. Let me make sure I'm thinking about it the right way. And so that entire concept was so new to me when I first learned about it through like the podcast and all that stuff, that I was hyper focused on that a little bit to like a fault. And so at that same triplex, in the second floor bathroom that was completely gutted, one of the contractors had mistakenly cut into the water line. And so then there was a waterfall going from the second floor to the first floor. And that first floor, I was going to just do like this cosmetic renovation. And I'm standing there because I'm off from work that day. And I'm watching this waterfall come down from the basement, from the second floor down to the first floor where I was. And I was like, oh, man, why did it take so long for this to finally happen? Like I was waiting for like something really bad to happen and nothing was happening. I'm like, okay, so cool. I finally got to this point. I feel good about this. And then afterwards, I was like, I should probably go turn the water off. And even that moment, I recognized how like crazy I was thinking, how calm, cool, and collected I was. And I was like, you know what? That is like an important identifier for me to know that, all the things that I was listening to and, trying to incorporate in like the way that I was thinking, it was actually coming to fruition. And I was, able to tell myself, oh, I could do this. If I could not freak out about this crazy thing, then I think I can figure it out, and I think I can do this. And then it ended up proving to be true. And this was before, JT, you helped with all the sheetrock and stuff. So you need to have all these problems and all these issues come up, because otherwise you don't learn how to problem solve.
Yeah.
And so the more you can go through that in the beginning, the faster you can realize I'm way more capable of things that I never would have thought.
Yeah.
And so it's very stressful in the beginning, especially like when you're a newbie, but it's also something that is kind of like a rite of passage. And as soon as you go through that phase, then you're just kind of, coasting, and, the world is your oyster at that point.
That's what's so cool about problem solving, is like you almost create this web of solutions in your mind, so that when it comes up again, you're like, oh, I've been here before. I can do this, this, and this, this is and this. And like part of that is also creativity, like having the ability to think outside the box and not like look at something like just from one perspective. And like you can look at it and be like, man, this stinks. But also at the same time, like you can flip the switch and be like, okay, once I, figure this out, like I just learned a new skill, and like you can apply that to so many other things. And or if the problem comes up again, or when you have your next property, you know how to put up sheetrock, it's like, man, it sucked at first, but now it's like it becomes easier and easier over time as the problems come up.
Yeah, like you're way less intimidated. And we were talking about earlier how the fear of the unknown is what causes people to not go into entrepreneurship or starting their own small business or investing in real estate or whatever it may be, because you're always comfortable with the small bubble that you live in.
Yeah.
And if you're able to take away that fear factor, then all of a sudden it's not even like a new chapter in your life, it's a straight up new book.
Yeah.
It's so true.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah.
Also, I feel like the way that people problem solve can even go back to like when they were younger. And if you face like a lot of I don't want to say like trauma, but like you face a lot of like problems growing up, whether it's like in school or like in your home life or with friends. It's like you build that resilience so that like in your later years, you're not so, I don't know, like you just, when you ever meet someone that's like in their own bubble, they never know how to like problem solve. And it's like, man, they've never really experienced anything in their life. So I feel like sometimes that kind of helps too. Like it gives you like a thick skin.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We all need thick skin, for sure.
So you want to tell us a little bit about what you're doing with Stellar Housing Solutions?
Yeah, so I'm a co-founder of Stellar Housing Solutions with two other partners, Dennis and Frank. And what we do is we provide furnished rentals for a minimum stay of 1 month. And this is also called midterm rentals or medium term rentals. The easiest way to describe it is think about an Airbnb, right? So nicely furnished and hospitality and all that stuff. But instead of a weekend or 1 week, whether you're on, like a vacation or like a trip, you're here for a very different reason, and it's a minimum of 1 month stay. So that's why it's a medium between the short term rental and a long term rental. Let's say if you're signing like a 1 or 2 year lease. And so it's this nice middle ground, and it's a bit of both hospitality with the short term rental side, and it's a bit of landlording with like the long term rental side. And we started that business. Our LLC was formed about end of January of 2023. So we are about just over like 1 year old, I guess, as far as like the company. And today we have 12 active midterm rentals that are listed, and we are working on 3 more that are in different stages of renovations. And so we've grown pretty fast, and it's been a crazy journey for us, and it's been so much fun.
That's awesome.
So you don't own these rentals or all of them? These are other people's that you manage, or?
So we have a combination of everything. So some of these rentals are properties that we own. So 2 of my personal properties, 2 of them are midterm rentals. And
Very
so we
cool.
manage it together as, a company. And we also manage for other people as well.
Okay.
And then additionally, we do what's called arbitrage. Essentially what that is it's just lease subleasing. And so if you are a landlord and you would lease the space to us, we would furnish it, turn it around, and sublease it to someone else. So then we would make the difference, which is what an arbitrage is. It's the difference. And so we're doing it in many different ways. And so each strategy comes with its own challenges, but it also comes with, different goals of how we want to operate each thing. And so it's been like a good learning experience, and I feel like we're kind of coming into our own of knowing exactly how things need to be set up. How do we scale? How do we ensure that we're providing top-notch stellar product? Like at the end of the day, it's still a hospitality business. And so whether it's a property that we own, a property that we're arbitraging, or a property that we're managing for someone else, we always need to keep a certain standard. And so we're always looking, like if you have a name like Stellar, you have to make sure you're providing stellar service and stellar product. And so that's what we're doing.
Nice. What has it been like working with partners? Because I think sometimes partnerships get mixed reviews. They either get glowing reviews or, horrible reviews. So what's your experience been?
For us, it's the 3 of us, Dennis and Frank. And the way that I like to describe our partnership is 3 circles in a Venn diagram. So at the middle, where all 3 circles meet, we all have the same goal. We're here for the same reason. We're trying to do the same thing. And we are on the same page about most things. And that's super duper important, because as soon as you have one person that falls outside of that, then, everything kind of comes, crumbling, or not necessarily, but it becomes a problem, because you're at your core, you have to be in it for the same reasons. But also at the same time, there's always 2 circles that also join together too. And that kind of describes the skill sets that we have. And so I'm not good with electrical stuff, but Dennis and Frank are good with it. Or maybe 2 out of the 3 of us are really good with communication, or 2 or 3 of us are really good at building furniture or doing all these different things. And so it's like a interesting combination of everyone bringing in their skill sets and their knowledge and their personalities too, and combining it. And there's always something where, let's say if I'm not available, whether it's Dennis or Frank, somebody is gonna be part of that intersection where they can pick things up and just take over. So that's been like really crucial, because I'm still working full time as an oncology pharmacist. Dennis is also a pharmacist. Frank is a web developer, full time with his own business. And so in order for us to succeed and scale as we have to have the right mindset, and we all have to be willing to sacrifice and do whatever we need to do. And then we also need to be able to pick up after one another too. And so that's been the game changer for us. And that's, I think, the cause of our quick rise and success, because, you know, we all have like a good head on our shoulders, and we're all willing to sacrifice what we need to sacrifice, and we're all willing to speak up like when we need to. And so it's been a very fruitful partnership that I'm really, really grateful for, because they definitely challenged me, and I know I challenged them too. So it's been awesome.
That's great. Yeah. How do you guys like communicate? Do you get on meetings a lot, or you kind of just are able to sort things through text and stuff?
So we have a WhatsApp group chat, and we're huge on WhatsApp. And sometimes, you know, if I'm putting my phone away, like there'll be so many unread messages. And essentially we're just communicating every single day, not necessarily constantly, but at many points, you know. And it's not just always about business, you know, and things related to Stellar Housing Solutions. It could just be like, hey, did you see this house on the market? Or let's, you know, look at this. And it could be something completely different. And so the fact that we all just get along so well, and that we genuinely like each other, and, you know, we're, you know, that close, that is what kind of changes things, because it's never a situation where someone sends a message and it's like, I got to deal with something. It's really not like that. And so I just feel very fortunate to be able to leverage, you know, Dennis and Frank and their skills. So it's been, yeah, really cool. Really, really cool.
Very cool. Yeah. What kind of challenges have you guys faced that you weren't really expecting before you started in business together?
Well, I've never started my own business. Same thing with Dennis. And Frank has his own business on his side that he's done, so he's good at what he does. But as far as like opening up a multi-member LLC and trying to get bank funding and a credit card when you don't have business credit or business history, that was like a challenge that we didn't exactly, you know, expect. And I kind of knew through, with like me being as resourceful as I try to be, knowing that, that could be a challenge if you're opening up a new business and you don't have 2 years of business credit. If you're leveraging just yourself, it's a lot easier to get business funding, because they do it based off of your personal credit profile. For us, it's not the case, because it's multi-membered. And so trying to get business funding in the beginning was hard, but we actually did end up finding a bank where, you know, they did, you know, give us a business credit card and a bank account and all that stuff. And that's what like really got us started. And so that was just like a new adventure where you only know what you know. And so it was not that to say that it was an actual challenge, but it was just something new that you never had to deal with. And so, you know, you kind of think that you should be able to start any type of business, and, you know, my personal credit, all of our personal credit profiles are great, so we should be able to, you know, walk into any bank and get this started. But it's not actually the case. And so that was a bit of a surprise, but it was a good learning experience for us too.
Yeah, especially for you guys, you probably had a lot of startup costs that other businesses don't have, because if you're furnishing apartments, like you have to come up with the money to buy all that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, unless you're pooling and contributing a lot of money in the beginning, which, you know, you kind of don't want to as like a, you know, new business. You have to learn to leverage credit and stuff like that. And of course, you need to have a plan to pay everything back. And we obviously did, because we know that, you know, we could pay off the credit cards based off, you know, the rental income that we would be collecting from our midterm rentals. So it was a matter of just finding like funding and stuff for us.
Yeah. And how did you go about finding the properties that you have now? Like, was it people reaching out to you? Was it you reaching out to people? How do you know when something would be a good deal? Are you willing to take risks on things in hopes that like it would pan out? Like, how do you kind of vet certain properties?
Well, as far as location, the very first midterm rental was the first floor of my triplex that I bought. So I had that proof of concept, knowing that it would be working and that there was demand for midterm rental tenants, and there was like a lack of supply. So I knew as long as we were within the area, we would do just fine. And in the beginning, I think at that point, Dennis also had a midterm rental of his own in South Jersey. And now we just wanted to get our first under Stellar Housing Solutions. And the easiest way is to do the arbitrage model. We would go on Zillow and message everybody saying, hey, you know, we provide corporate housing, you know, rent is going to be paid on time. Actually, rent will be paid early because we're going to set it on auto pay. Your apartments are going to be kept pristine, because if there are things wrong with the apartment or if it's dirty, that directly affects our business. So it's in our best interest to make sure your apartment is in tip-top shape, better than you've, you know, given it to us. And all these other benefits that, you know, that we would tell, you know, whoever is listing these rentals is saying, oh, we're also landlords ourselves. So we completely understand like the headaches that having bad tenant, you know, comes with. You're not going to have that at all. And so in the beginning, I'm writing a script and copying, pasting on all these little listings. And we'd even walk into apartment complexes saying, hey, this is what we do. And they're kind of like, all right, we'll call you. Right.
Yeah.
It was going nowhere. And then, you know, when you send these messages, it seems kind of like scammy. And so what I started to do is, you know what, the realtors don't want to respond. It's more work for them. Property management companies, it's not what they normally do. So they're going to kind of ignore us. The good middle ground was finding the property owners who are doing it, you know, like a mom and pop style. Now, in every listing, there's always something that is missing, like who pays the electricity? It's the landlord or the tenant, or the gas. Okay, the gas heat, but what about the cooking? Is the same. So there's something that you can kind of pick out from each rental listing that you can inquire about. So what I did was I already had my own Zillow profile, so it had my income and credit score. So I would ask them a question saying, you know, is this utility included or not? It's not in your listing. And so then they would respond, right? And afterwards I would say, oh, you know, I love this rental. I would love to either meet with you in person or hop on a phone call. And so that is what allowed us again to contact with, like, you know, the very first landlord. And turned out that landlord was kind of crazy. But lo and behold, we found someone else. Yeah. And, you know, it's a older landlord who had like this an apartment complex. And so we met up with him in person. Well, actually, first I spoke to him on the phone and had this wonderful conversation. They're like, oh, okay, you know, this makes sense. You know, you rent to traveling medical professionals. Oh, you know, my son's something, you know, they're a doctor too. And when they were doing their residency, they had to travel and stuff. So there was some familiarity with it. And so we toured the property and all that stuff. And he was like, yeah, you know, like, when do you guys want to start? And so it was like pretty smooth for us. And then since then, he's offered us more and more and more and more, to the point where we had to say, number one, yeah, no, we don't want that basement apartment. Number two, like, yeah, we're not ready to take on another one because we are, you know, busy and all that stuff. So we've benefited from being able to show him, especially with that first arbitrage, that rent really is set on auto pay. You get paid on the 21st or something like that, you know. If you got paid on time, that means something went really, really wrong. And we would invite him to show him the apartment. Hey, the tenant just left. we didn't even do cleaning. Come take a look. And he'd be like, oh, did anyone even live here? It's like, yeah, they did. But this is the different type of class of people that are here. It's not your Airbnb people trying to throw parties. It's not your long-term tenants who may be not taking care of the place. These are people here for corporate jobs, temporary job assignments, people, homeowners renovating their houses, people that are in transition from moving from out of state. We have tenants that move from out of country and all these different people. And so, they have a reason to leave. So they're not going to squat on you or anything like that. And they're also professionals and stuff like that. And so they're going to take care of your property. And so it's a very different type of tenant pool. And by us showing that to them, they were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Why don't you take these 2 more? And we were like, okay. So we furnished 2 more arbitrages at the same time. And we actually, so that second arbitrage, we finished furnishing with 1 hour to spare. And we met the tenants in the parking lot all sweaty in August. Like, oh, hey, yeah, it's all, the apartment's ready for you. And the third one, we finished with 10 hours to spare.
Wow. Oh my God.
And, going back to like leveraging the skills that we have. So Frank is a web developer. He's the one that built our website, our branding, our logo, our marketing, like our merch and all that stuff too. And so now we're benefiting from economies of scale because we have, all these midterm rentals that they'll contact us about. And even though something doesn't fit, we're always working on another midterm rental. So we tell them, I don't have anything for you right now, but I know you're looking 3-4 weeks from now, we will have something. And they'll say, okay, I'll sign a lease right now, without even looking at what the place is going to be, because they look at our listings, they look at our website, they see that we design and furnish and everything very well, very professional, so that they can trust in us. And that's actually happened, I think like 5 or 6 times where we found tenants in, and like we were the problem because we had to go faster, and so it's been like pretty exciting, and to be able to be in that type of scenario. And I understand that like most people are not going to be able to benefit from that. But, like we also have some other friends who are starting, their first midterm rentals, and we'll just, send leads to them too. And so it's something that is exciting to do. And especially like when you're doing with other friends and contributing, as like this small little community, it just, builds like this really cool thing that we're doing in North Jersey that I feel like no one else is really doing too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all very new, and you can speak to it more, but the demand is definitely there, which is really cool. I feel like a lot of the travel nurses is kind of what spurred a lot of it, I think, during COVID, and now it's like a very prevalent for people to be traveling and renting these places.
I think a lot of people look at midterm rentals, especially those who are real estate investors, and they just think travel nurses.
Yeah.
And you're right, exactly. Midterm rentals became very popular during COVID because these travel nurses were getting $10,000 per week on their 13-week assignment. So that's a lot of money that they're making. And then, back then there was not much supply. There was a huge demand. And so landlords were also probably charging crazy amounts and all that stuff too. And then as soon as you have that happening, word gets out like kind of quickly. Mm-hmm. Fast forward today, those rates are long gone, right? And so it's kind of reverting back to what it used to be before COVID. So it's a lot more normal. And a lot of people still think midterm rentals are all about travel nurses, but it's actually not. And so I would say no more than half of our midterm rentals are occupied by a travel medical professional. Okay. And by travel medical professional, it's not just nurses, it's like CT technologists, radiation oncology, like all these other physical therapists. There's a huge need of travel medical professionals in general. And then on top of that, you have everyone that's, in between housing, whether they just sold a home, in between leases, renovating their houses, or parents moving to the area for a couple months because their kid just had like a, you know, like a child. And so there's a lot of these different scenarios, or even corporate workers where they're from a different state. They got assigned to a job in this area for a couple months. And so we have had tenants that stayed exactly 30 days. And we also have tenants that like are already signed up for 8.5 months. And sometimes they extend and extend and extend. Sometimes they don't. But it's like a wide range of length of stays and needs and reasoning for temporary housing. And so it's a lot more interesting, and the tenant pool is a lot wider than you think. And so especially with the law of supply and demand, if one of our midterm rentals is booked for 8 months, it doesn't exist in the world for anyone else to book. And so some people think that, oh, but if there's a lot of supply, all of a sudden you're competing with everyone else. And to an extent, yeah, that's very true. But if you have like professional photos, and Dennis on our team, he takes all of our professional photos, right? So we're covered with like the website and photos and all that stuff. If your listing is better, right, than anyone else in a crazy market where there's a lot of saturation and everyone's bringing their prices down, we're still going to get booked because our listings are just better anyways. We have economies of scale, and we also provide all the top amenities that are like desired by midterm rental tenants anyways. But all of that to say, in the Airbnb space, everyone is competing against each other straight up. And that makes sense, right? If they don't book you, they're going to book me, and vice versa. But in the midterm rental space, we're sharing leads, you know, we're helping each other out and stuff like that. So it could actually be like a really big collaborative community effort. And that way we can leverage each other. And so it's just a very different space to be in. So it's very interesting.
That's such a great mindset to have, like an abundant mindset rather than like scarcity, like, oh, like I want to compete with these other people. It's like, I feel like it's always better to befriend everyone and share the wealth, because I feel like it always comes back to you in some way. So that's nice that you think like that.
Yeah, the abundance mindset is something that really changes the game, because I think whenever you're going to any type of new business, or especially in real estate, you're always thinking about yourself. And sometimes I speak to realtors and I tell them that, hey, actually my community of real estate investors and friends that I have, like, we don't gatekeep. Actually, we just give it all, you know, we just give out all the information, you know. Oh, snow removal, hey, this is who I use. You need a contractor for that? Well, here's who I use. Here's someone that someone else used. Tools, well, yeah, like, let me know what you need. I may not have it, but someone else might. And so being able to be part of that mindset and circle has been like a game changer. And that's the thing too, like if you're, let's say, like a realtor, it kind of is like competition. But as soon as you change your mindset into an abundance mindset, like you said, all of a sudden there's a lot of delayed gratification that happens when, you know, all I did was give, didn't take anything from you. But that one time when I asked for that one favor, when I really needed it, you came through, or you helped me out, or you picked up the phone call. And that's like when you realize how valuable that is. And that is, you know, shown in our business too, where now at this point, we're not trying to fish for leads or anything like that. People are coming to us saying, take our apartment, lease, you know, sublease from us again, or can you manage my midterm rental, you know? And so now we're at like this great point, because we started with that abundance mindset. People are coming to us and we're finally able to benefit on that end, instead of having to try to convince you, hey, let me manage for you, or let me try to, you know, convince you to earn, you know, income or whatnot. So I think it's very important.
That's awesome. Yeah. We have a few questions that we did not send to you. We're going to do like a little rapid fire round.
Uh-oh.
Are you ready?
Let's do it.
When you think of successful, who's the first person that comes to mind?
I don't know why, but I was thinking just Bill Gates. And honestly, it's not even that I have any type of like fascination with anything like that. But the reason why I think about Bill Gates is because he kind of taps into a lot of like other industries, and, you know, as well, like as a philanthropist, he's trying to do all these other things where it's not about him anymore. Like, yes, he had a vehicle to financial success and obviously changed how the entire world operates, right, with technology and computers and all that stuff. But I feel like a measure of your success is not just your own personal finance and growth and how you've personally benefited, but your ability to affect other people positively, you know, whether it's for someone else's financial gain or for their benefit or being able to change someone else's life, whether you even recognize you're doing that to someone or not. I feel like that is like a better measure of success because it's actually meaningful.
What's your favorite business or real estate book?
My favorite real estate book is a book called Unreasonable Hospitality by Will Guidara. Now, this is a book by the former manager and owner of 11 Madison Park, which used to be the #1 restaurant in the entire world, and it's in New York City. He basically took it from a regular restaurant to literally the #1 rated restaurant in the entire world. And it's his book that talks about the journey of how he was able to do that. And it was through this unreasonable hospitality of surprising people and giving people more than they ever expected, right? Kind of going back to the abundance mindset, whether it's a tenant that we're trying to surprise them with this fabulous place and some of these other surprises that we actually do for them. When you go above and beyond for somebody else who didn't ask for it, everything kind of changes. And so even directly in a midterm rental business, things like go wrong during their length of stay, right? Because if they're there for a month, 2, 3, 4 months, stuff happens, right? But if you have been unreasonable with your hospitality, meaning you're just doing all these things that are not really necessary, it's not going to help you get like a review or anything, but you're doing that and being thoughtful and mindful. When you do have these instances when something goes wrong, they'll be like, you know what, it's okay, you've been so great, right? Or they'll leave us a review where it's like an entire paragraph, like, oh my gosh, these guys were amazing, you know, and they never mention like, oh, that one time where there was like a plumbing issue or whatnot, you know, or like some type of mishap. So ultimately, I feel like while we use that in our own business, it's very applicable to any entrepreneur, small business owner. So it kind of hits both the real estate and the business and the hospitality part of your question.
Nice. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
It's not advice that I received personally, but it's something that I heard in one of the Bigger Pockets podcasts. And it was actually a question that they, you know, something like this, where they ask these rapid fire questions saying, what is like a character trait that separates those who are successful from those who are not? And the answer to that question that someone gave was tenacity. And earlier I mentioned being tenaciously resourceful. And I feel like me hearing that and trying to put that into action and really changing my own paradigm and the way that I'm thinking to be tenacious has really changed things for me in terms of, obviously, you know, going back to dealing with problems and all that stuff, but even it's done wonders for me, even thinking about what are you know, why do I think the way that I think, you know, why do I react in the way that I react, you know, and even tenaciously questioning myself and trying to think outside the box, looking from the outside in. So I've tried to actually incorporate that into like every facet of my life, and I feel like that's been kind of like life-changing. And so while it wasn't advice that was directly given to me, it was indirectly given to me, and that was been super impactful.
Very cool. What is your most important daily habit?
Daily habits that are most important, I think probably just taking a moment to be recognizing that I am in a place of abundance and being grateful for it and practicing gratitude. And so when I do that, I'm able to just be emotionally happy. You know, when things go wrong, I'm able to do it with a good head on my shoulders, not be too stressed out about things that are out of control or whatnot, and I don't get overwhelmed as much. But I think being able to practice gratitude and knowing that we are all in such privileged positions. Sometimes it feels like all these other people are more privileged than me, but but why me? If you kind of just change that narrative and just start being gratitude with what you have, I feel like it can really change your day and start your day out right. And so that's something that I do where I just wake up. I'm like, man, this is still really cool. I love my W-2 job. I love my coworkers. I love the business. And I love all these things that are happening. And, practicing gratitude, I feel like, is a good start to the day.
Nice. If you could own property internationally, where would you buy property?
I don't know exactly where, but it would be somewhere on a beach because I love going to the beach and just, baking in the sun and all that stuff. Somewhere with blue waters, I don't travel a lot internationally, so I don't know exactly where, but I've seen a lot of really, really cool pictures of awesome beaches. And I would be like, you know what? If I could figure out a business and like work 100% remotely and just live in some really cool tropical place where life is slow and easy, I think I'd probably want that.
If you had a blank check and you could start any business in the world, what would you start?
If I could, love this question. Absolutely love this question. If I had a blank check and I could start any type of business, I would actually still do real estate,
Nice.
but a very particular niche in real estate. And it's actually a personal goal of mine too. I want to build apartments that are fully accessible. So people who are not able-bodied like us, whether they are in a wheelchair and you need a roll-in, not a walk-in shower, but a roll-in shower with grab bars, and they can go use the sink because it's slanted, or a stove where the buttons are in the front, not all the way in the back, and also wide hallways, and or even houses and apartments that accommodate those who are even blind. So like blindness is a spectrum, and so you can still have some vision, but obviously not that good vision, and you're still technically blind. And so those folks are, it's harder for them to find housing because then you need certain accommodations like super bright lights and all that stuff. So in my head, I daydream about these rentals that are, it could be a midterm rental too if you need it, right? Come here for whatever you need, right? Just bring your clothes, and you can, whatever disability that you have, there's, you're going to be able to live comfortably. It's really, really hard to find for those people to find quality housing that's also available like when they need it. And so that's kind of like this cool dream that I have, to be able to provide that type of housing that's just hard to find. It's rare. And if they do have like accommodating or accessible homes, only some things are like accessible. It's like, cool, you did all these things with the bathroom, but someone with a wheelchair actually can't even fit through the doors. And so I think that would be really cool to be able to do that for other people.
What's your favorite place to go rock climbing?
We got to go rock climbing together.
Not outside.
Actually, I was going to say, man, we should go outside. Like not too far from here, we have what's called like the Gunks, and it's like world-class like climbing out there. I've gone climbing in Joshua Tree, which feels like it's like the Flintstones. It's like you're on some weird planet, and have, climbed outdoors and random other places too. But I feel like more than any place in particular with like breathtaking views and awesome climbs, it's really like the people that you're there with. Like whether I'm, climbing at like inside in the gym or outside, it's a very sociable sport. And everyone is like always so welcoming. And so being around that environment and the people that you're with really, really makes a trip, whether it's some, not so great place or like some world-class place.
Nice. What do you prefer, a day at the beach or a day in New York City?
Day at the beach, hands down. Well, I'm also like, I work in New York City too. So, being able to exit that part, and to go into a beach. Yeah, that's my thing for sure.
Is it pork roll or is it Taylor ham?
Taylor ham. Taylor ham.
What's your biggest goal for 2024?
2024. So we haven't got to a point where all three of us, Dennis, Frank, and me, were like at least one of us, or if not two of us, are always like renovating a property that we just purchased. And so like my brother closed on a duplex recently, so I've been renovating all that. I'm pretty much like the general contractor for that. And so I'd like to get to a point where we're not buying properties, and just so we can focus like on, growing and scaling our business, creating systems and standard operating procedures and things like that. A goal for 2024, I was thinking, it'd be nice to get 20 midterm rental units, but seeing how there's a lot of demand for us, it's like, I think we'd probably get there. I think for me, I'm really big on systems. And so a weird goal for me is just to have my systems and guidelines dialed in so well that I could start to take myself out of the day-to-day operations and the admin side of like the business, so that we could hire virtual assistants. Or if I decide to go on vacation for a week, anyone else can just hop in, because there's a strict guidelines and SOPs of how every single step is, should be done. So being able to automate, things like that is like actually a goal of mine, not necessarily trying to hit like a gross income or number of midterm rentals or trying to buy more properties. It's probably that.
Nice.
Very cool.
The
And then
camera just shut off, so it's still recording, but.
Oh, okay. I guess as like to wrap it up, what is like a piece of advice you would give to an aspiring entrepreneur, or just someone like starting off in investing, or really just like wanting to start a business?
I'm going to refer to the first time that I met JT. And the thing is, you need to kind of find your tribe. You need to find your community. You need to find other people who have the same goals and the same train of thought. Because if you have this goal or dream, but all the people around you are not, thinking about the same things, they're going to do nothing but bring you doubt, cause you to be fearful even more. Right. And so when you surround yourself with people who are like-minded, the conversations are completely different. My very first real estate meetup that I went to, I didn't own any property. So I had this crazy imposter syndrome. It was the second floor of this restaurant. I walked upstairs. Everyone was just talking to each other already because I was a little bit late. I got so scared. I actually had a panic attack. So I went into the bathroom and I texted Frank. I was like, hey, I'm having a panic attack. This is crazy. I don't belong here. He's like, no, just go out. Just say hi to one person. I said, okay. I went back outside, had a second panic attack, went back into the bathroom, called him. I said, nope, I'm out of here. Like, I'm done. Right? 2 legit panic attacks at this real estate meetup. Funny enough, my triplex is only 4 minutes from that restaurant. So isn't it crazy how like you come full circle? But the very second real estate meetup I went to, I ended up meeting JT. And after that meetup ended, JT and we were outside freezing in the cold for 2 hours in the dark after everything was shut down. And next thing you know, a couple months later, I'm under contract. A couple months later, JT's under contract too. And just that moment of having these conversations, oh, do you know this person? Do you know this concept? Yeah. Do you know this YouTube channel? It was crazy because I felt like I was alone in that journey. And then I found someone who was exactly in that same position as me. And then finding people who are 1 step ahead, maybe 2 steps ahead, but not too far ahead. Because when you're first starting out in your journey and you see, and maybe you're like 1 or 2 years in, when you see someone else who's trying to do the same thing as you, you're going to be able to relate because it's not too far off from where you were. And so being able to connect with people through meetups and groups and webinars or whatever, masterminds, whatever it may be, finding as many of those people and growing really deeply rooted relationships with them, and also just trying to give and help each other out, that is going to change your entire paradigm of, knowing that there are all these other people that are doing it, right? And I can go along for the ride too, and I have that support system. So that's the advice I would give to anyone, starting out.
That's great advice. And then where can everyone find you? So like websites, social media, email, like literally anything, all your contacts.
Our website is stellarhousingsolutions.com. I'm most active on Instagram, and it's my name, James_Hwang, which is spelled Hwang. We're also on Instagram at Stellar Housing. It's the easiest way to contact me is just through my personal Instagram. If you want to email, it's hello@stellarhousingsolutions.com. And, we're always available. And, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to just, talk about midterm rentals, help other people out, and just continue to give, essentially.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. We were very excited to hear your story and learn about your business.
It's been a blast. Thanks for having me.
All right.